Hello everybody, it is Emery48 here, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. Today we are continuing on the Legends timeline in 20 BBY. We have MedStar 2, Jedi Healer, by Michael Reaves and Steve Perry. Rimsu 7, Jasseric Highlands, on Ten Lassa, Drongar, Year 2, ABG. Chapter 1. Barriss had a flashback to her time on Ancion during the novel Approaching Storm, previously covered on this channel. Barriss then had a call with her master, Luminara Unduli, who wants her to remain on Drognar, as she feels there is more for her to learn there. Chapter 2. Lieutenant Colonel Davini has arrived at Joss's quarters and said he has been assigned there. Joss described Cornell as about 14 years old. Cornell's nickname is Uli, which originates from his home planet, Tatooine. He has graduated from Coruscant Medical and had an internship on Alderaan, the same hospital as Joss's internship. The Republic drafted him early because they are short on field doctors, so he doesn't have as much experience as most field doctors, but he is an official doctor. Before passing out at the table, Den Dur tried to come up with a way to get I-5 drunk, which is rather impossible considering I-5 is a droid. Chapter 3. Joss, Tolk, and Uli worked on incoming wounded clones as a new doctor came in and worked on clones as well. This new doctor was not known by Joss or Tolk. Admiral Earl Kursos, Bled's replacement, was the new doctor. He is also Joss's great uncle, who his clan shunned 60 years earlier for, I'm guessing, dating an outsider, which is currently what Joss is doing with Tolk. Caird, still in his silent disguise, watched as Barriss helped an injured clone. Caird is confused as to why there is a Jedi Padawan on Drongar, but does not plan on killing her, as that would definitely bring more Jedi to the planet to investigate. Chapter 4. Lenz was saddened by Zan's death, even though he is a spy working against the Republic. He acknowledged that the doctors are not the part of the Republic he is working to take down. Den took Joss's spot at the weekly meeting with Merritt. They discussed his conflicted feelings about Foji. Den sees Foji as an insane murderer, but the public sees him as a hero because the mercenaries G had killed were training for a covert attack against an important, unnamed Republic target. Den ended the sessions short to go drink at the cantina. Merritt warned Den not to get too much solace from drinks, as the cup will have to keep getting bigger until he can fall in. Chapter 5. Joss spoke with Uli outside after their day in surgery, reassuring Uli at how well he had handled himself. They seemed to be getting along well. Caird welcomed new members, referenced by Lenz, Thula, and Squatrant. Chapter 6. Barriss cut her foot while doing lightsaber training. Uli walked by and noticed the injury and patched her up. Barriss was grateful but also disappointed that she had lost concentration enough to cut herself. She had thought she felt a cool breeze, which she has not felt before on Drongar. Chapter 7. Rimsu 7 has 2 new occupants. The new quartermaster, replacing Philba, is Nars Doha. There is also a new waitress droid for the cantina, TDL-501, nicknamed Teedle. Joss, Tolk, Merritt, Den, Barriss, and I-5 discussed their new co-worker, 19-year-old Uli, over a game of sabacc. Then Joss's presence was requested by Admiral Kursos, his great-uncle. Chapter 8. Joss spoke with his uncle. He had married an outsider and was shunned by the family. His wife died 6 years into their marriage, leaving him alone in the world, so he made a great military career over the next few decades. Chapter 9. Merritt had a theory of a way to simulate intoxication for I-5, that will have to be tested after they deal with the newly arriving Medlifters. Thula and Squaw have agreed to work as the new Boda operation for Black Sun on Drongar. While heading back to his quarters, Caird felt a cold breeze for just a moment from seemingly nowhere. Chapter 10. It has been 3 weeks since Uli arrived, and he and Joss are getting along well. In 3 days, performance acts from the Republic will come to boost morale at Rimsu 7. Column knows of a separatist plan that will likely kill non-combatants on Drongar, which he knows he will mourn after the war, but he needs the Republic to lose. Tolk has been called up to take a class on the MedStar, but she is the only nurse on the planet required to take the class. Tolk and Joss know it is so Admiral Kursos can meet Tolk without Joss around. Chapter 11. Colum is headed up to the MedStar where he will blur the line between spy and saboteur. Barriss answered some philosophy questions from Uli of Healer, Warrior, and the Force. Joss, Uli, and Den sat in the crowd of the entertainment. During the opening monologue, Joss left to go get a drink at the cantina. The power went out during the second act. When the generator kicked in, there was another cold breeze. Then it snowed. A planet that is constantly high 90s and humid is now snowing. Chapter 13. The snow was caused by a malfunction in the temperature control with the shield. The snow relieved Barriss as it gave an explanation to her mistake days earlier. The cantina filled up with cold customers. Someone ran in and announced that there was an explosion on the MedStar, taking out half of the flight decks and most of the storage level. Chapter 14. Joss worked on wounded clones while constantly thinking of Tolk. Vates reported that there are at least a dozen dead from the explosions, but none named yet. Den heard 26 dead floating outside the MedStar, sent loose by the explosion. A short time after the explosion, Barriss felt that it was not an accident. Chapter 15. Joss is contemplating using some of Zan's leftover Boda on an infected clone. Vates informed Joss that Tolk survived the sabotage attack and is tending to the wounded on the MedStar. Joss is relieved that Tolk is okay, but shocked that there would be an attack on a medical ship. Chapter 16. It has been a week since the shield malfunction and the replacement parts were lost in the sabotage. They are awaiting new parts from out of system. The temperature has been stabilized at negative 60 degrees, and the snow has concluded at about knee-deep. Chapter 17. Colum looked at the planet below from one of the safe observation decks on the MedStar. 33 lives were lost in the explosion. Joss used the Boda on a clone, healing him. Barriss then used some on a Rodian, having massive spasms. The first attempt she injected herself. The second attempt healed the Rodian. Barriss then had a huge force hallucination, seeing her master, the creation of suns and planets, and suns going cold. She could feel the force like never before. Chapter 18. Tolk returned to Rimsu 7, although she had a colder demeanor toward Joss. I think Merritt is Colum and Lens. Merritt was up at the MedStar at the time of the attack. Teetle, the server droid, was scrapped voluntarily for parts to repair the dome. Chapter 19. Tolk is not telling Joss the whole story of what happened on the MedStar. She is still distant. Barriss has not reconnected with the Force since her hyper-aware incident. Barriss could not call off planet to ask about her experience. She thought about taking the Boda again, but has decided not to for the moment, although it would be so easy. It seems like the dark side definitely wants Barriss to take the Boda again. Chapter 20. Joss spoke again with Merritt, this time focusing on his relationship with Tolk. The dome was fixed, and the heat and humidity began to rise. I-5's full memory has been restored. Chapter 21. Caird got information that the Boda's always adapting DNA may soon make it a useless weed. Chapter 22. Caird has told Thula and Squaw to take 50 kilos of Boda and bring it to him within a week. The operation on Drongar is coming to an end for Black Sun. Chapter 23. Joss and I-5 spoke. I-5 is a bit different now that his full memory is restored. Chapter 24. Caird told Lens about the Boda and his planned heist. As Joss returned to his room to sleep after finishing his shift, Uli called. 100 wounded on their way after a hydrogen plant exploded. One of the surgery droids just broke and they needed all the hands they could get. Joss killed a non-clone wounded with a mistake brought on from exhaustion during surgery. Chapter 25. Den was tipped off about the Boda mutations. Den and I-5 are headed to the cantina. I-5 is heading to try out his plan to simulate intoxication. Caird continued preparing for his getaway after the heist. Colum sent word to his superiors that the Boda was going to be useless soon. They are definitely trying to make you think that Colum is Tolk, but I still think it's Merritt. Chapter 26. Barriss took the Boda again. While she was one with the Force, she learned there is still a spy among them, and the camp is in serious danger. Chapter 27. I-5 got himself drunk successfully by changing some settings. Den also enjoyed a drink. Tolk went off looking for Joss. Joss considered suicide, but thought about lessons from his past and knew better to struggle through the bad times to reach the good times again. Chapter 28. Tolk told Joss that she requested a transfer to a different rim-suit. Drunk I-5 won a game against a Wookiee but lost his arm. I-5 told Joss and Den that he was going to leave soon to care for Lorne Pavan's son at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Chapter 29. Den is having some doubts about his newly formed romantic relationship and has to decide between getting help from Merritt or help from the Cantina. Chapter 30. When Joss and Uli's shift ended, Joss invited Uli to their game of sabacc. Barriss is going to send I-5 with a message or package to the Jedi Temple so he can watch over Lorne's son Jax, who was taken in by the Jedi years before. Chapter 31. Colum, Caird, Thula, and Squatrant prepared their departures from Drongar before the incoming Separatist attack. Joss wants to meet his great-uncle on the MedStar as he thinks he is the reason Tolk wants to leave. Chapter 32. Caird drugged a pilot of the Admiral's personal ship and his girlfriend. The pilot gave Caird access codes so he could escape Drongar. Caird did not kill the pair. Joss confronted Errol. Joss confessed his love and the path towards acceptance of outsiders on their home planet in recent years. When Errol saw the passion Joss had, he decided to support him and Tolk. Errol will also show Tolk the recording of the conversation to correct his error, as he has indeed convinced her to leave Joss. Chapter 33. Den chose the Cantina. He contemplated releasing his story on the Boda, which would ensure the most dangerous battles all across Drongar. He also contemplated leaving Drongar before these battles happened, but didn't want to leave his friends he has made behind. Caird successfully stole the Admiral's ship and departed Drongar with about 70 kilos of Boda and carbonite. Chapter 34. Den is going to leave with I-5 in a few hours, but will warn some of his friends beforehand, which might tip off the spy. Chapter 35. I-5 will come to Coruscant with a vial of Boda. Barriss was able to talk with Master Unduli and explain the situation that has developed on Drongar. As Unduli was giving her advice to Barriss, the call cut out. Chapter 36. Once in flight, Caird checked the Boda and realized it was actually a bomb, tossing it out the ship 2 minutes before detonation. He can no longer retire as his gift is gone, but he will hunt down Thula and Squatrant for their betrayal. Chapter 37. Barriss told Vates that the Rimsu was in more danger than normal. Without any evidence, all Vates could do was increase patrols. Barriss confided in Joss her experience with the Boda. He has his doubts in the extent of her story and the choice to use it a third time, as she doesn't seem to have much control over it, so she would do more harm than good by accident. Chapter 38. Tolk and Joss rekindled their relationship, then started a shift. The Force Dome is under attack. Barriss has determined that either Tolk or Merritt is the spy, which I have thought it's been Merritt for a while now, even though I think they want us to think it's Tolk. Den told Barriss about the Boda. Barriss asked Tolk permission to use the Force on her mind, seeing she was not the spy, telling Joss and Tolk that she had narrowed down to Merritt and Tolk. Merritt, or Colum, or Lens, was ready to leave Rimsu 7. As he left his office, he was met by Joss with a blaster pointed at him. Chapter 39. Barriss decided against using the Boda again, as the temptation would likely send her to the dark side. She then realized that her time on Drongar has turned her into a Jedi Knight. Chapter 40. Joss confronted Merritt. Merritt told a story of his planet being exterminated. The Republic was testing their weapon for the Death Star. They fired it at Merritt's home planet's sun. The Republic had miscalculated, and it killed the entire population of the planet with a solar flare. 1 billion of Merritt's people. As Merritt went to walk away, Joss fired. Joss fell as he shot. Chapter 41. Den and I-5 made their way to the evacuation transports. Chapter 42. Joss woke up on the MedStar with a concussion, surrounded by Barriss, Tolk, Uli, Vates, and Admiral Kursos. Joss had killed Merritt with his shot as the roof collapsed onto Joss. A Republic cruiser came to Drongar to help with the evacuation and assist the MedStar's return to the core. I-5 and Den are going to return to Coruscant and work together. Epilogue. Tolk, Joss, and Admiral Kursos are headed back to Corellia, Joss and Earl's home planet. Joss and Tulk will marry and face whatever prejudice Joss's family renders. Earl is returning home for the first time in decades to see his family and face the prejudice as well. They both know that they each have at least one family member for support in each other. That's all I have in this book. That's all the book has. And wow, this series started off really rocky with a lot of medical jargon, but by the end I was fully invested in these characters. I was completely terrified of Joss also dying towards the end. For me, Barriss was a more intriguing character before she stabbed herself with the Boda. She kind of contributed nothing to the story after that. Den was useful sometimes, but for the most part this series was all about Joss, Tulk, and Merritt. Carrot and the insight into Black Sun was also awesome. We don't hear much of Black Sun in general, let alone their dealings throughout the Clone Wars. I think I prefer this book to the first one, but mostly because this book resolved the overall story of the series and the spy. Thank you everybody so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.